All right, so welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. Question came in like this. Someone asked, if a person says, let's say you spoke to somebody and the person says they're going to the grocery store. All right, we'll make it simple. Person's going to the grocery store. What happens? You end up not going for whatever reason. Let's say you had intention to go. You should have gone. You didn't go. Maybe it was weather. Maybe, I don't know, whatever it was. You didn't end up going. Or you end up doing something else. Right? In other words, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So the question is this considered bearing false witness? And it's the same thing as lying. Right? Now, here you didn't lie. You had full intention. Right? You had full intention to go do whatever you said you were going to do. Right? You weren't misleading anyone, and you didn't go. Let's say, I don't know, person was on their illness. Something happened. Right? Something happened, you didn't go. It's not like you had intention to mislead the person. Right? You'll say, well, at the end, what I said wasn't true. Okay? Not the same thing as outright lying. Right? So then the question is, does that bear false witness? So we have to see. Right? We'll have to see what bearing false witness means. Right? But let's make clear, lying is purposely distorting the truth. You're not allowed to lie. 100%. You're not allowed to lie. Right? That should apply to non-Jews also. Right? Who says you're allowed to misrepresent? Right? Or purposely lie. Right? Misrepresenting, let's say, in business, also should be forbidden for non-Jews. Even in the purpose of conversion, certainly forbidden for Jews, right? No question about it. You're not allowed to, misrepresent. Certainly not allowed to misrepresent. Now, what about bearing false witness? What's the definition of bearing false witness? Now, a person could end up lying, but not their fault. It could be the result of being inattentive, being careless, saying something that might be true, let's say, but hasn't been verified. Right? Hasn't been verified or something else happened. Now, if a person repeated a rumor, right? Repeating a rumor is a problem. It certainly could be lashon hara. But let's say they repeat a rumor that they heard. Not necessarily lying. Why isn't it lying? Let's say it's true. Right? It could be true. And if it's false, you just didn't verify it. But you're not outrightly lying per se. Now, it could be, in this case, person wasn't careful, they weren't attentive, maybe that's bearing false witness. Right? Now, let's go a little bit deeper here. What's the 9th commandment? 9th of the 10 commandments. What does it tell me? 9 commandment says, do not bear false witness against your neighbor. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Normally, it means you can't lie in court. You're not allowed to lie in court. You're not allowed to lie in general. Bearing false witness is giving false testimony. That's what it seems to mean. False testimony in court. Now, if you look at some of the other commandments, of the 10 commandments. What is do not steal? We know it can't be money or property, because we know there are other verses talk about that. That's the highest level of stealing over here. What's that? Stealing a life, kidnapping, human trafficking, enslavement. Right? Most people are not aware when it says don't steal in the 10 commandments. That is a reference to what? The reference to kidnapping. Right? You're stealing a soul, so to speak. Right? That's what you're doing. Now, comes on the 9 commandments. Also refers the highest form of lying. Right? What's the highest form of lying? Lying in court, perjury. If let's say lying in court was not a criminal act, anyone can lie. Justice certainly wouldn't be served over here. And obviously without justice, you got corruption, anarchy, all kinds of things. So the Torah warns many, many times about manipulation, about distortion, certainly of the judicial system. Bribes, judges, rabbinic court judges, not allowed to take bribes. When the Torah says don't take bribes, we're talking about someone at the highest level. Obviously, other people shouldn't take bribes also. But here we're talking about rabbinic court judges. Because the bigger the person spiritually, bigger his evil inclination. So a rabbinical court judge cannot take bribes. Not only can't they take bribes, if, let's say, one of the litigants done them a favor, so they also may be blinded. If they're not going to be blinded, they don't have to, they don't have to get away from the case here. They don't have to adjudicate over here or abdicate in this case. Why not? Again, if they're not going to be biased in any way, shape, or form, regardless of what one of the litigants might have done for them, and they can still see clearly, so they should judge the case. But if there's even a little bit where the judge feels they might have a bias, they can't judge the case. They have to get away from the case. They have to say, I can't judge this case. Now, interesting. Just talk about, how things work. Based in the Torah tells me in the book of Deuteronomy, I need 2 witnesses to uphold, right? To uphold law, right? In other words, if I want to bring witnesses, I need 2 witnesses. Let's say I only have 1 witness. Can't find another witness. I only have 1 witness. What's my obligation? Right? Let's say better. What happens? Right? What happens? What happens is that a person is now the other person obligated to swear. Why? Because I need 2 witnesses. Torah tells me I need 2 witnesses. 1 witness, not enough. Totally not enough. Right? So a single witness can't testify. Right? Actually, we're going to start to learn the laws of testimony. When I go up north, I'm going to finish up what we're doing now and get there. But, just throw this out there as well. Someone has testimony. They know testimony and they don't give testimony. They know their friend needs it or whatever. Or they're summoned to court, or they know they have to come, or they should come and give testimony. They're over Torah prohibition. Because now they're causing their friend a loss. Why? They can give testimony over here. Now the question is, if you're going to join with someone else, very good. But what about singular testimony? Maybe a person can't testify singularly. Why? Because you can't get him. Can't get the other person. See, we can't turn the Torah into a pretzel. The Torah tells me clear, I need 2 witnesses. 2 witnesses, any language you want, means 2. So if a person comes to a rabbinical court just to try and nail someone else, 1 witness, that's not good. That's not good. If he's going to help the person, now what can happen? What can happen? You only have one witness. So you make the other guy swear, but we don't swear today. Why don't we take an oath today? Why don't we make a vow today? We're afraid the person's going to lie. So they'll make a compromise anyway. That's what the rabbinical court will do, right? But someone who's just going to join testimony anyway, and he's only one witness, it's like he's got nothing better to do except he wants to cause damage. So that you're not allowed to do. It's also a Torah prohibition, right? So if a person knows testimony, they should come. They should come and give testimony. Now, someone's going to say, what if the other guy is tough guy, mafioso? They're afraid for their lives. Good. That's the whole discussion. That's the whole discussion. He's afraid to give testimony. Do we say if he's afraid to give testimony? Maybe it could be hazardous to his health, right? So what do we do? Do we let him go? We don't let him go necessarily. So what if he's afraid, right? Could be Torah obligates him anyway, right? So, these are very detailed laws over here. Now, back to what we were speaking about before. So single witness can't testify. Normally can't testify. Because you need two witnesses. How do I know? Torah tells me. Karaites are going to love me. Everyone's going to love me here. Why? Because the Torah says explicitly, I need two witnesses. Right? No medrash, no rabbis, no nothing. Right? Torah tells me clear. So if I have two witnesses are going to diminish the possibility of false testimony. Now, could be someone else bring witnesses against, right? Could bring two witnesses against just to uproot these witnesses. Okay. There are certain people who can't be witnesses. People who commit crimes, scammers, thieves, people who lend with lend money with interest, right? Usurers, as we would call them. Gamblers can't serve as witnesses if, that's the majority thing they're doing. Whatever. There are a lot of details. Who cannot bear witnesses. So witnesses can be challenged, to see if they're telling the truth. Certainly that if they're challenged by the witnesses, let's say proving they couldn't be at the crime scene during the date, they said, I was with someone else somewhere else. First witnesses receive the penalty of punishment corresponding to the crime, right? So that should stop that. In other words, let's say someone hires false witnesses. But if those false witnesses are proven to be false, whatever that person is trying to accuse the other one of, they get that punishment. They get the exact punishment, right? So, that would be, somewhat of a determinant over here. If someone accused someone of a crime, carries death penalty. You got false witnesses, and they're proven to be false, they get death penalty, right? Just an eye for an eye over here, so to speak. Just like they wanted something to happen to them, right? To the other person, it's going to happen to them, right? And a false witness is not going to go unpunished. He who declares lies shall not escape divine justice. Proverbs chapter 19, 5. Chapter 19, verse 5. What does that tell me? You can run, but you can't hide. You do certain things, God's going to get you. He's going to get you one way or another. Right? That's the way it works. You want to do something egregious? Well, that's what's going to happen. Right? That's going to happen. So basically, what do I have over here? We have lying and bearing false witness, similar to lying. Right? But bearing false witness has a specific definition. Right? It means I lie in court. I mean, not me, somebody else. Somebody else lies in court. They lie in court. That's bearing false witness. Now, is that lying? That's also lying. Right? That's also lying, but lying is not something, this is one of the 10 commandments, right? Bearing false witness. Should apply to non-Jews as well. Not allowed to lie, not allowed to commit perjury, right? But what is lying in general? Lying in general means that I'm doing something on purpose to distort the truth. That's what I'm doing. 100% that's what I'm doing. Now, bearing false witness, not necessarily doing that. It could be a person's lying, but it could be also the result of something else. They weren't careful with information. What they say may be true, may not be true. Right, but they're not necessarily lying on purpose. Difference. Right, there's a difference. Bearing false witness, is not in the Ten Commandments for no reason. The Torah could have just said, don't lie. And we'd have learned out other things from lying. Right, but obviously the language is different. If the language is different, that means they mean different things. Not exactly the same thing. They could be. They could overlap, in certain ways. But bearing false witness, again, not allowed to lie in court. Now, if you lie on purpose and that same thing as lying, yeah, but this is worse. Why is it worse? Because you're lying in courts. You don't take an oath to say you're going to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God, and swear in the Bible. We don't do that. Right? But someone who's brought in as a witness, we're assuming they're telling the truth. And obviously the rabbi is going to ask him all kinds of questions to verify that. 100% to verify. Right? So, that's more specific than actually lying. That's, something more severe. See, tell me, but someone who lies, is purposely distorting the truth. Okay, that's pretty bad. If we're going to grade this, you say, okay, what's worse? Lying on purpose to get whatever you want, or lying in court? Or distorting the truth in court? I would think destroying the truth in court is worse. Here you go in front of rabbis, you're supposed to be in a heavenly place, so to speak. Judgment's being done. How could you lie in front of judges? You lie to someone else, okay, maybe he's not a rabbinical judge, maybe, he's lying, but the other person's not going to lose money or other things, whatever the case is. Okay, that's bad. I don't think there's any question it's bad. Lying in court, that's pretty bad. One of the last things, actually I'm going to discuss tomorrow when I go up north, and whatever, finishing up the last thing about the laws of judges, and that is you can't curse a judge. You would think, well, isn't that obvious? Yeah, the Code of Jewish Law says you can't curse the person. Forget judge. Can't curse anybody. Judge is worse. Rabbinic scholar is worse. Right? So what if they forego their honor? Are they allowed to forego their honor? So the answer is they're allowed to forego their honor unless it's a disgrace to God. If it's a disgrace to God, they can't forego their honor. But if someone says something, they curse them, one of the names of God, or even, name a JC or a false God, whoever it is, it's also forbidden. Even any language, also forbidden. What's the Torah prohibition? Cursing with God's name. Right? Cursing with God's name. Or any nickname. Or any other name, not the 42-letter name. Any other name of God, cursing's bad. Cursing is going to be a Torah prohibition. Right, over here. Yeah, you curse the name of JC, forbidden. Right, rabbinic prohibition. You can't curse in any of these things. Any of these false gods can't curse. All the more so, you can't curse with, the 42-letter name or, any other names of God. Right, the God of power. Right, Hashem, the God of mercy. Right, the God of power, Kel, Elohim, any of these names. Yeah, so that would answer, I hope that would answer that question. The difference between lying and bearing false witness and the importance of both. So to speak, what's the view? Someone asked, what's the Jewish view on luck? What's the Jewish view? We don't believe in luck. That was easy. Like, what do you mean? Isn't there heavenly influence? Yeah. Don't the stars, planets have influence? Are we over non-Jews? No question. Jews, different issue. We can overcome it, even if you were born, let's say on the star of Mars or the planet Mars. Right? What does Mars represent? Blood. So that person's going to be more susceptible to blood. Maybe want to destroy things, kill things. So what do we say? Use it in the right way. Person become a ritual slaughter, do circumcision, be a doctor, something like that. See, if we're under a certain heavily influence, very hard to fight. Doesn't mean we can't. We're above it. Why are Jews above it? God tells Abraham, look in the stars. What does Abraham say? I see in the star it says, Avram's not going to have children. What does God say? You're above the stars. You're above all that. God changes his name. Right? One of the reasons. Many other reasons, but that's one reason. So he's above the stars. So even if the stars say you're not going to give birth, he's not going to have a child, it can change. 100% it can change. Doesn't mean it can't change without hard work. Right? But we believe 100% is what we call divine providence. Things happen for a reason. They absolutely happen for a reason. Right? So since God runs the world, God's in charge, right? We believe in divine providence. So nothing happens for no reason. Nothing. Now you tell me, but I don't know, we don't understand why things happen many times. True? That 100% is true. We don't understand a person gets punished, something happens, and it's measure for measure. Many times, we don't understand the measure for measure. True? 100% we don't understand measure for measure. Sometimes it's more direct. Sometimes God will open our eyes and show us. Sometimes there's a pattern. We see certain things. Okay? I would say 99% of the time, we're never going to figure it out anyway. We'll never figure out the measure for measure. If a person, I would say like this, take stock every night before you go to sleep, before your head hits the pillow, write down what happened during the day. Well, you did things good, things bad. How'd you pray? What'd you think about? What mitzvahs did you do? Good and bad, but be honest. How'd you interact with others? Whatever. How much time do you learn? How much time do you learn Torah or whatever? How much did you waste time? Make a list, a real list, realistic list. We're not going to come out squeaky clean. I don't think there's any question about that. People say, well, God will have mercy. Yeah, to a point. Not infinite mercy. But see, if we take stock of what we've done on a regular basis, don't we understand a lot of things could happen that we get punished for because we weren't careful with this. We weren't careful with that. We were negligent. And we did it over and over and over. So far playing God, most people probably happy I'm not. Put on my funny glasses, my funny George Burns mustache. And I would say, this is how you serve me. This is what you do. You give me lip service, your mind somewhere else every time you pray. You do things by rote, which is akin to spiritual death. Right? Very hard to fight against. Don't you think there'd be serious payback? Don't say, well, I'm already suffering this way, that way. The payback. Nobody wants to hear it. But there's a right way to do things, a wrong way to do things. People say, oh, that's your opinion. Well, what does the Bible say? What does the Torah tell me? You know what the Torah tells me? Torah tells me, second paragraph of the Shema. You do the right thing, good. God will give you rain, proper season. God will take care of your needs. You don't do the right thing, it's payback. 100% it's payback. Payback for Jews, payback for non-Jews. Non-Jews not guilty here. And by them, payback will be much more severe in many ways. Because a lot of their laws, the Noahide laws, are liable for death penalty. Number of them. So they don't get off scot-free. There are repercussions. Now, the higher the person is spiritually, you're closer to the king, as Corbin Aaron says, beginning of chapter 16 in the book of Leviticus. Right? Talks about the sin of Nadav and Avihu. So you talk about that. What does Corbin Aaron say? The Orach Chaim HaKadosh brings them down and says the closer you are to the king, you get burnt. You get burnt. And we see when the Jewish people don't keep what they're supposed to do, there's payback, serious payback. Coming up the fast of the 9th of Av, coming up this Sunday. Right? Well, from Saturday night sundown to Sunday sundown. Destruction of the temple. You read the passages in the Talmud discusses that's pretty horrific. Makes the Holocaust look like a bunch of pansies. No offense to any Holocaust survivors. Right? The Gemara there says 4 million people killed, 40 million people, 400 million people. Someone will say there weren't that many people in the world. True. So maybe it's just an exaggeration just to tell you a lot of people were killed. They were butchered. They weren't just killed. One thing to just be shot up, gassed, or whatever. Here, they never, what type of weapons they have back then. Knives, hatchets. I'm sure that hurts also. But, a person thinks of dying, a person gets shot, or whatever. That's one thing. But here, it's people just getting hacked to death. When they were going to Bavel, they were going to Babylonia on this long walk. Anyone got out of line, got hacked to death. Got hacked to death. Punishment severe. Temples destroyed. I would agree. We don't do what we're supposed to do. Yeah, we're liable for a lot of things. And the closer you are to the king, technically, maybe the worse it is. But I would say no. Because if you have an opportunity to be close to the king, that means I have to be very careful what I do. I have to be very careful what I think. I'm very careful in all my actions. 100%. I have to be careful in my actions. If I'm not careful in my actions, payback. Nobody wants to hear that. Not very, not such a great thing to say. Because we want to think we're pretty good. We're not really that bad. And there are plenty of people out there who don't have a clue. Jews. Plenty non-Jews don't have a clue either. But, I'm talking about Jews. 90% of Jews have no clue. None. Biggest question they ask, I put ketchup, mustard, or relish on my hot dog. That's where they're holding. But we're a collective unit. That's the problem. Collective punishment. So one person does something wrong, everyone suffers. So what we do matters. A lot of things we can do better, no question. But if you look at history, you look back in time, it's a very easy scale to see. Jews do the right thing, we're on the top. Jews do the wrong thing, we know what the end result is. There have been Holocaust, pogroms, expulsions, throughout the millennium. It's a good thing we're a chosen people. Someone saying, wow, why would I want to choose that? You don't have to. I'm bored with it, so too bad. It's what I have to keep. Someone who would choose it, kind of special. Because who would choose such a thing? Knowing all the pogroms, knowing responsibility. Plenty of people want fantasy. Let them take fantasy. Plenty of people out there, happy with stuff that's meaningless. Totally meaningless. Okay, it's their choice. A lot of distractions in the world. People can choose it. But guess what? You can run, but you can't hide. Because in the end, God's going to get you one way or another. Whether you suffer here, both here, or the next world, we're going to have to pay for what we've done. That's clear. Right? That's clear. Torah says clear. Just taboo, regardless of what the Muslims say, regardless of what the Christians say, right? God gave the Torah to us, it's on the books. There's payback. There are repercussions. There's no free lunch. Right? That's the bottom line. No free lunch. We say, well, doesn't God have mercy? Have to see what we've done. Have to see how it all gets tallied up. What we did over here. We were holding. It's not about future potential. It's about what, it's about right now. Strangely enough, who do we learn it out from? Yishmael. Why? Because the angels are saying when he's dying as a child, let him die. Look at all the problems it's going to cause in the future. Look at all the terrible things it's going to do to Jews in the future. God says, great idea, one problem. Or let's say better, got one question. Is he liable right now or not? It's a child. Said many times, child's not liable. He's not of age. Right? So if he gets a dreaded disease or something happens, it's because of something else going on, not because of him. Because he's not punishable. What's the age that's punishable? 13 in a day or 12 in a day or up to 20. So if a child's born mentally challenged or has diseases or other things, People say, well, where's God? God's exactly where he is. He knows what he's doing. But it's not the child's fault. You know why? It's not the child's fault. It's not the child's fault because he didn't do anything wrong. The child's not guilty. How do I know he's not guilty? He's not guilty. He's not guilty to the age of 13 or 12 or up to 20. So if he's not guilty, what's going on? Either you tell me, kid's bad luck, right? This bad luck over here, and he was born to these parents and this is what happened, which we don't believe, right? Or he's got a soul, and that soul has to go through certain things in this world and has to maybe fix up certain things that it went through before, i.e. what we call reincarnation, which is a Jewish concept, absolute Jewish concept, as our Kabbalistic sources tell us. That being the case, the child didn't do anything wrong. The soul, different issue. Different issue. The person made up of body and soul. 100% body and soul. So someone asks, if someone here answer, choose prioritizing the oral Torah. Okay, we'll answer it. What's the question? Someone here throws out, the fact that what goes on can affect Jews and non-Jews, right? That's true, right? No question, right? No question about it. Right, so here, someone asks, I correct somebody who accuses Jews of prioritizing the oral Torah over the written one. If you have the right answer, go ahead. Not a problem. All right, let's make clear. I made a number of videos on Tanakh Talk on YouTube. I'll give a very brief answer. Many things in the Torah do not have explanation. Torah's a law book. Let's make clear. Right? We'll give an example we just spoke about. Torah says you can't bear false witness. One of the 10 commandments. Now, the Torah also tells me later you can't lie. So I would ask a question to all those Karaites or Karaite wannabes. What do you do with both verses? Why do I have two verses essentially saying the same thing? Bearing false witness is a lie. Essentially, it's a lie. It could be a person thought he was telling the truth, messed up information. It's a lie, essentially. Telling a lie is also a lie, right? 100% is also a lie. So what's the difference? What's the difference? Torah doesn't tell me. Right? Torah also tells me don't steal a number of times, and Torah tells me 10 commandments don't steal. Torah doesn't mince words. Torah doesn't repeat itself for no reason. So maybe you tell me, maybe there's different types of stealing. Okay, but why mention it in different verses? Why not mention it one verse? Torah tells me, we'll get there one day. Book of Leviticus chapter 24 talks about the holidays. Torah tells me on Sukkot I have to bring a nice smelling fruit. Torah doesn't tell me what it is. Right? On the festival of Sukkot. Torah tells me to bring palm fronds. Tells me to bring willows, myrtle leaves, and this other thing. Now, would someone like to tell me what that is? What is a nice smelling fruit? Someone's going to tell me it's a quince. Someone's going to tell me it's a star fruit. Someone will tell me it's a cantaloupe. It's a honeydew. It's, I don't know, pineapple. Smells nice. Maybe it's an apple. Maybe it's a peach. So how do we know what to bring on Sukkot? How do we know what to bring in that species? Maybe if I take all these species together, let's say one of them's wrong. Well, it's a good try. If I get one of them wrong, who says it's good? No one's going to say it's good, right? I got to bring something that I have to know what it is, right? So the $1.5 million question is, how do I know what it is? How do I know what a nice smelling fruit is? Got to come on to oral tradition. What does oral tradition tell me? It's an esrog. It's a lemon on steroids, as I would say. So the question being, why do we rely on oral law so much? Because the Torah doesn't give me any definition, does it? Torah says don't kill. One of the 10 commandments. Okay. Now what? What about euthanasia? Is that murder? Torah doesn't tell me. What will people say? Nah, euthanasia is different. That's mercy. It's not murder. Why is it mercy? Come on. Uncle Phil was going to die anyway. Going to put him out of our misery, out of his own misery. He's suffering. That's not quality of life. Well, it sounds good. Right? Certainly in this generation. It certainly sounds good. Put him out the pasture. No heroics, no nothing. We're going to cut him off. He's got a pacemaker. We'll cut it off. What happens when we cut off a person's pacemaker? They die. Even if they're going to die in 10 hours, they die in 2 hours. As the doctor once explained to me. So if that's true, you just kill them. That's murder. Right? So, I could go with a whole laundry list here. I'm not going to do that. I just gave a few examples. How would I know what murder is? Maybe it's, what if I murder someone or someone murders someone self-defense? Is that murder? Self-defense? He started with me. The only way I can stop him is throw him off a cliff. The only way I can stop him. He tried throwing me off the cliff. He slipped. I pushed him off, whatever. That's all I can do. Self-defense, that's not murder. Maybe in some places it is. According to the Torah, it's not murder. So when the Torah tells you don't murder, it doesn't tell me what. Doesn't tell me any definitions. So I would ask the $1 million question or $1.5 million question. Okay, tell me what it means. So someone's going to say, it's whatever you think it means. I don't think that's true. Can't be whatever you think it means. How am I going to know? How am I going to know? Maybe in one case you do justice. Maybe another case you kill someone. What about abortion? Hot topic today. What about abortion? One finds out she's a month and a half pregnant. No, I don't want this baby. So we hold that's murder. Why do we hold it's murder? 40 days considered a life. Now, there will be some circumstances. We're not going to go through this. There will be some circumstances that would be permissible. Right, but if it says don't murder, what about that? Oh, that's different. Why is it different? Because I have a choice to do whatever I want. Who says? It's my body. Who gave you the body? God himself gave you the body. Right? I understand how biology works and how a person's created. Right? Okay, who puts the soul in the body? Well, that's nature. Who puts the soul in the body? Torah tells me. That you don't need oral law for. God breathes in the spirit of life. And if he doesn't, you die. And he takes the spirit of life out, the angel of death, you die. No second chances in this case. Might come back later, but no second chance. So I would say if the Torah is a law book, and that's what it is, then how do I know what the law says? How am I supposed to interpret the law? Let's say better. How am I supposed to interpret? If I have no definitions, then the rabbis are not adding or subtracting to the Torah. They're explaining what it means. The Karaites have this great idea. The Torah says you're not allowed to kindle a fire on Shabbos. So what do? They sit in the dark. They eat cold food. Now, ask a Karaite, what about an oven? Is that the same thing? Is that kindling a fire? Gee, what about electricity? Okay, that's later. Is electricity the same thing? Right? We have to see. precedence. Someone will say, if I flick a switch on Shabbos and not doing anything, I said, really? So don't question why it's forbidden, not the topic for now. But I said, okay, I got a great idea. Take the plastic off the plug, right? Take the plastic off, take a screwdriver and take the screwdriver, put it straight in. I wouldn't do that. Why not? You're not doing anything. What are you, crazy? There's electric current in there. I do that, I'm going to get electrocuted. Oh, very good. I mean, not good, but if I shut it on and off, I'm not doing anything. Question why it's forbidden. Again, not necessarily because of cooking here. Not the same thing as fire. Some say it is, some say it isn't. Right? Not, a number of biblical authorities say it's not. But okay, how would I know what to do in that case? What do I do about electricity if I didn't have rabbis of every generation? Doesn't the Torah tell me? I mean, the Torah does. The Torah says, Book of Deuteronomy, got to listen to the Kohanim in every generation. Whatever they say, right is left, left is right. What the Torah tells me. Who are the Kohanim in every generation? The rabbis. Got to listen to them. And the reason is because they're telling you what the law means. Do we have any other source? No. If I could take a list of 100 questions, probably 1,000. I can make it very easy. On all the mitzvahs, I can say, okay, does it mean this? Does it mean that? Does it mean the other thing? Doesn't matter. Someone will say, well, who cares? Is only a part of it right? As long as they think what they're doing is right. That's not a fair question. That's chaos. See, the Karaites also have their own way to interpret things. They know better. I'll take a knock at the Karaites also. And every other so-called religion, they interpret things their own way. But see, I don't even have to address that. Because if we believe all these other religions are false, it doesn't matter what they do. It's all man-made anyway. And anyone who goes against Moshe Rabbeinu, it's called making up a new religion. I don't even have to address that. They can have their own laws, their own scholars, okay? But you see, if it's false, it's false. So they have their own scholars, okay? They can have whatever they want. If we believe it's false, it doesn't matter. Irrelevant. So the question is, if I don't have definitions, if it's a law book, how am I going to know what to do? How in the world am I going to know what to do? I'm not. So it's not relying more on oral laws explaining what the Torah means. Right? That's really the question. Because without oral law, we don't know how to do anything. Nothing. We don't know how to keep Shabbos, festivals, laws between man and man, laws of damages, which are extremely complex. Just mentioned a little bit about rabbinic court judges. We mentioned also about giving testimony, right? Torah tells me you need 2 witnesses. So what about one? Oh, that's also a good question. What about one? Torah doesn't tell me. It just said I need 2 witnesses. So I say, okay, by deduction, one's no good. But what if I had one? What if I only had one? So what do I do? Do I throw the whole thing out? Is the person totally not guilty? We throw the case out. What do we do? More questions than answers. I mean, we know what to do. No, we don't have what the rabbis tell us. Someone says, come on, no difference. And we're just making up as we go along. And we're relying on oral law more than Torah. Guess what? Do we have any choice? What's our choice? People say, I'm going to keep the Torah. You're not going to know how to keep it. Person will never know how to keep it. They'll say, not allowed to kill. What about animals? Torah says don't kill. Doesn't say anything about animals. Torah doesn't say how to kill animals, certainly in the Torah. Right? Torah says don't kill. Maybe that means animals also. Doesn't tell me that. I wouldn't know how to do it. The point is, I wouldn't know how to do anything. 0. So I need oral law. Think of that, you're relying on that, you're relying on the rabbis. Doesn't the Torah tell me I'm allowed to? Torah tells me clear I'm allowed to. Listen to the Kohanim in every generation. Who are the Kohanim? They were the ones who taught Torah. Those are the rabbis of every generation. So what do you do with that verse? I heard people explain that verse, turn it upside down, inside out. try and explain according to their agenda. But okay, I'm telling you what it means. That's what it means. And even if what they tell you, right is left, left is right, you got to listen to it. So the Torah's already telling me directly. Now I listen to what the rabbis say. I listen to what the Kohanim say. So what's the question? Why relying on the Torah more than oral law? The Torah already tells me. The Torah already tells me rely on the rabbis. They're the ones to rely on because they're going to explain what the Torah means. That's what it means. Someone asked, no, I law requires all nations establish governments. No, it mentions that they have to establish law courts. That's what they have to establish, not governments. I mean, there should be governments keeping things, I guess, all together. Knowing how to run the people and all that, right? But law courts, that's one of the Noahide laws is law courts. How does that apply to Canaan who cursed to be a slave? Now, I don't understand the question, right? What's the question here? You're asking, we're going to establish governments. Okay, so we answered that. You're going to establish law courts. Okay. Now, someone who's a slave, he cursed, right? He got cursed. Now, we're going to get a lot less politically correct here. There's a curse on Canaan. What does it have to do with the law courts? He's cursed, right? So if he's cursed, what are the repercussions? Let me tell you what the repercussions are. Who are the offspring? Who are the offspring of Canaan? Now, if I didn't have the Torah to tell me this, I get all the hate mail in the world, which I'm probably going to get right now. Who does Canaan represent? The blacks. Now, before anyone jumps up and down, let's look at what's going on in the world last, 1,500 years, 2,000 years. Or even less. Let's say last 500 years. Will be nice. Last 500 years. 600 years. See, most nations in the world, established nations, have had their day in the world. Portugal, time of discovering the world, they had their day. Portugal, not a major world power today, not by any stretch. England, they had their sphere of influence, certainly in America, South America, Africa, and Germany, the U.S., and other places, that have been successful in the world. Sometimes more, sometimes less, whatever it is. But nations have had their day. Czechoslovakia one time. Other places. You can argue, okay, what has Australia done for the world? Can't say they've had their sphere of influence also. Not going to knock them out. What about the continent of Africa? Let's just say, what does Africa happen? Okay, you tell me it's a lot of colonization. Enslavement, colonization, 100% true. Tremendous sphere of influence from England, France, other countries. But even without that sphere of influence, and that influence, seemed to be gone, they've left, all that. What has happened to that continent? Famine, wars, utter destruction. That's what's happened. Now, you could tell me, if a nation is down, they're not going to be down forever. They're not going to be on top forever. Right? The Romans had their day. The Greeks had their day, even though we're living in a Greek world today. Their influence is there. What's left of Greece today? With a cousin of mine, the old city, showed him some relics of the Romans. Some old relics. That's what's left of them. Greeks, okay, they have their sphere of influence in the world. We're living in a very Greek world. Fine. What about the Ottomans? Ottomans had their power. Other nations have had their power. Didn't last very long. Some more, some less. Okay. What? So now you tell me, okay, let's say let's say you've had a long time. You've had a long time to get the sphere of influence away. So, okay, maybe not as much time as we need. How much time is needed for, let's say, a country, to regroup? You're going to say, okay, they were impoverished. Yeah, they were enslaved. Okay, so you take the shackles off. They get educated. It takes probably a number of generations at least. Get people educated. It depends also if they have natural resources, how they're going to sell things, how they're going to survive, what do they have to give other people? What do they have to take from other people? Okay, this could take time. That I would agree. I would 100% agree. But if every last thing in general is one backwards thing after another, and wars and famines and more wars, whatever, throughout the continent, not in one place, throughout the entire continent. If I didn't have this verse in the Torah, I'd say that doesn't make any rational sense. Now, it doesn't mean individuals can't overcome, where they came from. Doesn't mean that. You see, they're individual cases, more than individual cases that can overcome. But the way society is, you can say it's racist and all that, okay? And they're starting a big disadvantage, okay? Some people overcome it. Take somebody like Nissim Black. Nissim Black, anyone's ever heard the story? He says on himself he should never be alive. Never. Right? He should never be alive. Parents are drug dealers. Cops came, busted them a whole bunch of times, this, that. They're not going to be alive. That's how he grew up. Is it his fault? I'm not saying it's his fault. He turned himself around. He got out of it. Not everyone gets out of it. Certainly not. But see, that's on an individual basis. Now, you could tell me socially, economically, that whole continent's been behind the 8 ball for a long time. Okay. How much time do we give it? Do you want to tell me another 100 years? It's going to take another, let's say it's going to take another 100 years. Another 150 years. Before, the place starts to flourish. Maybe. I don't think so. Why don't I think so? Because of the track record. The track record is it's a walking disaster. That's the track record. Now, you can give me 150,000 reasons why, and I'll agree. Things taken away from them, not educated, natural resources plundered, all kinds of things. And they're all, let's say, 100% legit. Okay? But for how long do we make excuses and say, why is it like this? Why is it like that? If you hear there's a coup, let's say a military coup that takes over, a country, whatever. 9 times out of 10, where is it? It's not in Europe. It's not North America. Not in South America. It could be in South America. Could be in some place in South America. True. Where are the vast majority of cases going to happen? There. Now, again, people say, well, that's racist, and they have this against them and that against. I agree. I'm not disagreeing. That a lot of negative things happen, 100%. But how much time do you give them? I'm not talking individual. I'm talking about the entire continent. In different countries. They all have to be behind the 8 ball at the same time? Every one of them? I mean, look what's going on in South Africa now. A friend of mine told me years ago, the rand used to be 1-to-1 to the dollar. It's not like 11 or 12 or more. And stuff's not worth anything there. Can't take their money out, other things. A lot of people left. Still a lot of people there for whatever reason. So they got more things going on than other places, let's say. Okay. But how do you explain that naturally? See, it's a very hard thing to explain naturally. You can tell me all these other factors happen. Okay, so let's say I agree. So what? How much time do you give? You're going to say it's going to take another at least 500 years. 500 years? It's going to take that long to rebuild an infrastructure and all that? I think that's a little bit exaggerated. Give me 100 years. Let's see. We're talking 60, 70 years, 80 years. We're almost at 100 years, I think. Right? I'm not going to do the math here. Right? When, England went out and France went out and all that. Okay. But it's just been a bad cycle. A really bad cycle. So you can tell me some other rogue places, maybe, dictators and other things or whatever. Okay. Not like this. Not like this. So I'm not the one who came up with this idea, right? I've heard this said by Rav Victor Miller, blessed memory, right? I heard him say it many times. But rationally speaking, I don't have an answer. I mean, I have a lot of excuses, a lot of potential things why things are the way they are. Okay. Right. But at the end of the day, it should get better at some point. It shouldn't stay the same or get worse and just keep going on and on this vicious cycle. Because you'll say the vicious cycle has to stop. I'll give an example on that also. You look at the Arabs, quote unquote Palestinian, second biggest lie in the history of man. No such thing as a Palestinian people. What's the first biggest lie in the world? Christianity. And third is probably evolution. Right? It's probably 1A. That and the Palestinian people. But let's say you got the, they've been, been educated however many years, and they're perpetuating the same lies. Same lies. They're going to say, come on, kept the refugee camps. They kept this, in all their books, what do they say? Get rid of the Jews. That's what they say. That's how they're being educated. So if you get in this whole vicious cycle and they refuse to be helped because, God forbid, if they take help, they get killed. Right? Can't do that. So it's a whole vicious cycle, but they're doing it to themselves. I mean, a lot of them, I think, would want to live in peace. The problem is the other element's got more power. But what are they perpetuating on the street? Hatred. It doesn't stop. I was telling this cousin of mine yesterday. They happened to be in different places in the old city. So he asked me, why are there all this, all these army people here? I said, because they're here to keep the peace. Because if they weren't here, it'd be a free-for-all. I said, yeah, they can be friends with you for so long and then just stab you in the back. That's what they do. That's an overgeneralization. No, that's what they do. Statistically, that's what they do. Right? So that being the case, they're being brainwashed by their own people. And they're being manipulated in what to do and this and that. Is that going to change? Nope. You know why it's not going to change? Powers and be don't want it to change. They're going to re-educate their children and say Israelis are okay? No. Someone asked me last week about these, Abraham Accords, what I thought or whatever. So I made one statement, and that is, they'll agree to partner up with Israel, not just about money. They got plenty of money. A lot of these countries, not about money, not about tourism, not about, not about that. Who are they afraid of? Who's the big bad wolf in the Middle East? Iran, right? They're the big bad wolf. Kuwait came to the, America came to the aid of Kuwait because they're afraid they come in. Iraq comes in, whatever. Take 70% of the oil, it'd be much worse than this today. And how much people paying for gas. There wasn't any love for the Americans, trust me. They wanted protection. And America had interest in going in there. They take 70% of the oil, that's going to be bad. That is definitely going to be bad. They're not love for Jews, I guarantee. Doesn't matter what the pictures say. If people say they want tourism, this, that, they want to be protected. Saudi Arabia, got an unbelievable standing army. Unbelievable standing army, nothing. They got zero. Right? So their whole purpose, I think their main purpose is they're getting protected here. And they're going to let them use their airspace. They're going to let the Israelis use their airspace. They get attacked. That's the main part. The other stuff's all fluff. Oh, they really changed their tune. You think Arabs changed their tune? I don't think they've changed the tune. That's not what they know. That's not who they are. It's not what they represent. They're very good at being two-faced. That's who they are. That's what the Torah tells me. You see, I don't even need translation for that. Or law, right? What does the Torah tell me? That's why Muslims get upset, because we portray Ishmael, as the Torah says, as a wild man. He's got his hand in his and everything. Everyone's got a hand in him. Let's go to the first part of the verse. He's got a hand in everything. What does that sound like? He's got greasy palms, greasy fingers. What are greasy fingers? He's a thief, essentially. That's part of his nature. They might be very hospitable. It's also part of their nature. And as you're going out the door, they'll knife you in the back, but that's also part of their nature. Very, very hospitable. Okay. But I would say like this, and again, this is living here more than 30 years. This is very easily verifiable. And that is, a car gets stolen in this country, in Israel. 99% of the time, who's the thief? It's an Arab. It's not a Jew. I'm not saying Jews can't steal. They could. Jews be part of the mafia? Yeah. Could they kill people? Yeah. How could they do that? Even in the land of Israel, because they're more like a non-Jew than a Jew. They don't keep Torah, they don't keep mitzvahs, whatever. So they're more similar to a non-Jew. Okay? Right? But that's part of their nature. That's who they are. What makes a Jew a Jew? We're by Shanim, Rachmanim, Gemus Chasod. We get easily embarrassed by Shanim. Rachmanim, we have a lot of compassion for others. And we do a lot of chesed. A lot of acts of loving kindness. Raise a lot of money for charity, exponentially more than anybody else. It's interesting. I heard someone say recently, we have all these things in religious communities. What we call a Gimus Chesed fund. Not just for money. A person needs to borrow money, let's say without interest. Person needs a lawnmower. You got that. Medicine. People have medicine. You didn't make challahs for Shabbos. You got that. You got all kinds of things. Someone was saying, yeah, you go to the heart of Tel Aviv. You think someone's got set up a gemach for money that they can lend without interest? I don't think so. In secular community, that doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. You know why? Because people are selfish. We Orthodox Jews, we're supposed to do what we're supposed to do. That's the first thing you're taught, is not to be selfish, to help others. Even if you can't give a lot of charity, you learn to give whatever you can give. You learn to help others. No questions asked. You learn to help others. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what makes us who we are. So you're going to say, well, the Torah says this about them. Okay. Is the Torah written by God or not? If it's written by God, do you think God knows what he's doing? So you're going to say, but does that mean everybody? A person can break out of it. Just like anyone has some character trait they're wired with. Can also break out of it. Just harder. Much, much harder to do. But that's who we are. Right? That's who we are. Someone asked, how do we know if a conversion is accepted by the state of Israel? There's a list. There's a list of rabbis and rabbinic courts that are accepted. So you have to, you have to find out which ones those are. But there is a list. There is a list out there. Someone asks, she got this earlier. How do you explain to a child or an older child, Egyptians were destroyed. God destroyed the Egyptians and rebuked the angels for joining the children of Israel rejoicing over the struggle. Right? So Gemara says that the angels, when they see the Egyptians drowning, they want to sing Shira. They want to sing. But God says you're not allowed to. He says, my creation is drowning. How can you sing? Didn't God punish them? Yeah, he punished them. So what's the answer? The answer is they deserve to be punished. 100% they deserve to be punished. But at the same time, God can be upset that his creation is getting destroyed. Right? There's a famous verse Torah tells me in the book of Genesis. Torah tells me chapter 6. Chapter 6, verse 6. Shem reconsidered having made man on earth, and he had heartfelt sadness. What's the problem with that statement? What's the problem? Problem is, God's got to have remorse. Didn't he know what man's going to do potentially? God knows. Beginning, middle, end. God knows. Right? Sorry, past, present, future. So Rashi uses a parable. And he says that some Jew comes to, I think it was Rabbi Akiva, and asks this question. And he asks this exact question. So Rabbi Akiva, or one of the rabbis, I don't remember who it was, said, well, did you ever have a child? And he said, yeah. So what did you do when you had a child? He said, had a big party, gave out cigars, had a huge party. So he said, great. He said, but don't you know one day this child's going to grow up and eventually die? So he said, yeah. So he said, I'm happy when I'm supposed to be happy. I'll be sad when I'm supposed to be sad. So too by God. He'll be happy when he's supposed to be happy that, we're doing the right thing, whatever. And if he's got to punish, he'll be sad. But they deserve to be punished. 100% they deserve to be punished. So they deserve to be punished. Why can't the angels sing? Because God said at the same time. See, we can't have two emotions at the same time. God can have multiple emotions at the same time because he's infinite. We can't do that. So simple answer is that, they are being punished. It is judgment, but God doesn't want to have to punish. He doesn't want to have to take life. But he does. And you think about what the Egyptians did. They almost brought the Jewish people to the last level of impurity that we wouldn't be here spiritually otherwise. And because they said as they were fighting or chasing the Jewish people that their God is fighting for them, they deserve to be buried. So they drowned. God drowned them and then spit them on the land to be buried. Again, if I were playing God, put on my funny glasses and my mustache, I would have said, what are you kidding? Look what they did. Look how far they went against the Jewish people. They deserve burial? Come on. I would have let the fish eat them, just like Bin Laden. Throw them overboard, let the fish eat them. No mercy. But the fact that they said their God is fighting against us, they deserve to be buried. So whatever, I spoke about that, middle video on it. Boggles the mind. So God had to do what he had to do, 100%. He had to do what he had to do. Doesn't mean he has to be happy about it, and that someone else should be happy about it. There's no contradiction, because we say a downfall of our enemies, we're allowed to be happy. And it says, another place says not that way. Whatever, there are different answers. Different answers in this contradiction. But, in general, God has to mete out punishment. He doesn't want to. Just like a parent has to punish a child, God forbid. They don't want to, but it's a benefit of the child. So here God punished, but not just he punished. He destroys his creation. He doesn't want to have to do that. If he has to, he will. And, you think it was easy by God destroying the Jewish nation, by any of these pogroms and everything else? He didn't want to have to do that. Probably paying them a lot. Can't imagine. His chosen people getting slaughtered and butchered and all that. Sure, he felt the pain. Much greater than probably we felt the pain. At the same time, he had no choice. They went too far. And he said, okay, that's it. I'm going to severely punish over here. Well, that's what I would say. So I mentioned that, false gods are false gods. Right? I can make fun of them. I can say whatever I want. Right? So the question is, if I use one of their false gods, I swear in their name, they're false. 100% they're false. And really the Torah prohibition is using, 72 letter name of God. Is it 24 before or 72 or 42, whatever? or any other quote unquote nickname of God, or even God in English. But it's brought down. What if I say one of their gods? There's no power, it's nothing. Still, we don't curse in general. That's the point. We don't curse in general. Someone asks, can you lie in court like Russia to avoid Siberia? It depends. To save your life. Maybe to save your life, it's different. But I will say, let's say, there's certain things you can't do that. Let's say, they say, listen, give us so-and-so, or we're going to kill everybody here. Right? It's a little bit different case, but I'll just throw this out there. You're not allowed to give the person over. You're not allowed to give the person over. And if they say, okay, you don't give us over, we're going to kill everybody, everyone has to die. Can't single the person out. Now, there was a case, one of the Rebbes was in, they'd caught, but they know who it was. And one person said, I'm the Rebbe, take me. And it wasn't him. Basically, he knows if he says he's the Rebbe, he dies. I mean, it's a question we should never have. Person allowed to do that? Who says your blood is redder than mine? Right? That's why, if there's a canteen of water and two people are in the desert, one person has, there's not enough water for both of them to survive. Right? Who gets the water? Well, you can't say give it to both, they both die. They say, well, who say your blood is redder than mine? So essentially, they both have to die. Neither one can take. For what it sounds like. Right? So lying, it depends what it is. Depends what it is. There were people that even in the face of that, they wouldn't lie. They refused. Torah says, Midbar Sheket Tercha. You're not allowed to lie. 100% you're not allowed to lie. That could be under all circumstances. Even if you're going to go to Siberia. Right? There are certain things you are allowed to lie for. About a person. One of them is about a person's knowledge. If a person has much more knowledge than they want to give over, they can say, yeah, I don't really know this so well, or whatever, in order to hide their knowledge, or whatever. There are certain cases you're allowed to lie. It's brought down a person be allowed to lie for marital harmony. You got to be careful. If you get caught, that's pretty bad. Then trust goes out the window. But, for marital harmony, you could lie. In general. So there are certain things you'd be allowed. That's what I would say on that. Someone asks, is being fortunate like being lucky? Again, things happen to us either because God wants it to happen, our soul has to go through it, or that, he wants something out of us. So if we are fortunate, let's say a person, business is doing well and everything's good and whatever. Now, there are different reasons. Maybe God wants a person, to have significant amount of money, be successful. One could be so they'll help others and they'll do other things. Could be God's going to give them a lot of money and a lot of success. They're not going to have any connection. So he's going to wipe them out in the next world. It could be a curse also. 100%, 100%, we don't believe things have my chance. That's Amalek. Right? So if things are going good, we better pray that they stay good. And then nothing happens. And we stay on the right path, that's for sure. But, in general, certainly for Jews, that doesn't apply. If a person's born under certain, certain signs, certain celestial, the way the planets are and all that, it doesn't mean we can't necessarily overcome it. Take a lot of work. Non-Jews are susceptible to that. In other words, that's one of the things Job's friends say to him. Maybe you're going through all this because of the way everything's set up. Right? Now, if that's the case, you're kind of stuck. A non-Jew doesn't fight it like we would. Could be if they put a lot of effort in it. Can they change it? I don't think so. Only says by a Jew, not by a non-Jew. But again, they could channel certain things that might be bad for good, as well. Someone asks, what if a leftist public school teaches kids abortion isn't murder? Okay, who says you have to listen? Like someone told me recently, the kid in school, got educated about, just teaching them about gender issues. Not say about sex, but about gender issues. How do you know you really want to be a girl? Yeah, it's a good question to ask a 6-year-old, right? It's kind of insane, right? So we have to, obviously, someone told me recently, or not so recent, they've never sent their kids to public school. For that reason, all these negative values. So we have to educate our kids the right way, right? So even if they teach, that abortion isn't murder, whatever, and that kid grows up, they make their own choice. Let's make clear, everyone makes choices. They make good choices, they make bad choices, but everyone makes a choice. Doesn't society play a major role over here? It does, but they're not pulling the trigger. Get a lot of wackos out there, pulling the trigger all over the place, right? Kind of crazy what's going on in the world, right? Certainly in the States. So, some of them, could be certified wackos, could have been destroyed by the system, or just totally went the other way, according to the system. The system can play havoc on us, 100%. But at the end of the day, who pulls the trigger? You pull the trigger, right? Guns don't kill, people kill. So who pulls the trigger? You do. I think you'd say, well, I grew up like this, grew up like that. Unless you can prove insanity, a person's liable. No matter what happened to them. I don't care how they grew up and this and that and they did that. Okay, it's tragic. But guess what? They're going to jail. They might even get the death penalty, depending where they did it. Society caused it, could be. Society plays a major role. That doesn't mean I don't have free will. I don't have free choice. Doesn't mean that. You can say, okay, did this, did that, but look what society did to them. Well, let me ask a question. That's $1.5 million question for the 4th time. Be rich by now, right? Well, what's the $1.5 million question? The person goes, shoots up a whole bunch of people, kills a whole bunch of people in the mall, let's say. And they don't kill him. He gets injured, whatever, they get him, they don't kill him. Now you tell the parents of these people that are killed, let's say they're children, we'll make it even graphic, much more graphic. Let's say they were children, innocent people in general. So if that's the case, you think the parents are going to care whatsoever how this person grew up? I don't think they're really going to care. They're going to say, fry this person for what they did. They're not going to care how he grew up and he grew up in a broken home. And what do they care? I did hear a story, crazy story, of somebody whose child was killed. Their child was killed by someone else. And the mother, I don't know if she was divorced, whatever the case was, pretty much almost adopted this child that killed her own. That's unheard of. Unheard of. Right? What would be the first thing that person would want to do? Take a baseball bat, at least. Take out my Louisville Slugger. That's normal reaction. Tell someone, they're going to befriend this person, let them walk in their house, all kind. Are you kidding? They're not normal at all. Maybe the person had a screw somewhere. I'm not saying, you can't take revenge. They're not allowed to do. And if the person was a Jew, you can't bear a grudge in your heart. This is going to be very hard. Very, very hard. But to befriend the person, welcome them in, that's it's unheard of. Unheard of. What if your own family does it? What if they do it? So what? Well, who cares if your family does it? Blood is thicker than water. You think the rabbinical court cares? They don't care. Family's family. You did this. The family member is guilty or not guilty. Depends. What do we care? What do we care about family? Our family matters. Person's going to get judged what the Torah tells and what's going to be. Doesn't matter. Family's close to you, not close to you. It shouldn't matter. Don't ask what's cursing according to Torah. Just said using God's name and cursing someone, or you're cursing someone, bad things should happen to them, or you curse them even without God's name, and you say good things shouldn't happen to you. It's also cursing, right? The normal idea of cursing is using the name of God to curse. Person says the name of God, you should be cursed. That's what cursing is. I'm not talking about every 4-letter word. That's cursing also, but not this. They're just having diarrhea of the mouth and speaking terrible things. Okay. Right? So cursing means you take God's name, one of God's names or whatever, and you curse the person. And you say that person should be cursed. Or you say, instead of saying the person should be cursed, you say the person shouldn't be blessed. Same thing, just the opposite. Right? Just say it in an opposite way. That's what it means to curse. What's the real meaning of parnasa? We translate it as livelihood. I mean, what's the real, the parnes really means, I don't know, let's see if we get a definition here. Let's see. We come up with a true definition. Maintenance. Parnasa can mean maintenance. We normally translate as livelihood. That's what it means. That's what it seems to mean. Yeah, so that's what I would say about that. That's literally what it means. It's livelihood, is to sustain, really to sustain a person. What do we say it means to sustain a person? Livelihood, right? That's what it means. So we don't bless anyone in the. You can. You said you can't bless anyone. You can bless someone. I wouldn't necessarily use God's name. But you certainly can bless somebody. There's no problem with that. We're just saying if a person said that person should not be blessed, that's a curse. That 100% is a curse. To bless somebody, you're allowed to, but we don't go saying God's name for no reason, not for blessing or for curse. That we have to be careful of, right? Because if a person said God's name, you could have said it in vain. You said it in vain, that's pretty bad. Yeah, any other questions? Can I know I'd read books on business, money making, genre made by secular atheists? Yeah, I don't think there's any problem as long as it's not illegal. Came across something recently where someone, fortunately the person's Jewish, had a whole scheme about trying to get, more clients for what they do for what do you call it? For, trying to get them more clients, whatever. So he's trying to get a client walk through the door in order to offer whatever their services. But he's making guarantees that may not guarantee. It says, I'm looking for somebody, anyone who wants to get, I don't know, 3 new clients in the next 24 hours, 48 hours. Now, someone's going to say, oh, that's a scam. Not necessarily a scam, right? Well, but what's the obvious question? What if you don't? You put out ads, it doesn't work. It usually takes a while. It can take 2 days, 3 days, more. Might have to tweak the ad if you do it, whatever it is. But that's misleading. That you can't do. That 100% is Torah prohibition. If you do it, it's like, what does it sound like? You're guaranteeing that's going to happen. Can you give a guarantee on that? No. 100% you can't get a guarantee on it. So if you cannot give a guarantee on it, that's lying. Now you could say, you get someone in the door, you get someone on the phone, you say, someone says, can you really guarantee that? You said, based on other things, we've been successful. And what happens? They put out ads, it doesn't work, so they'll say. So in order to make this true, they would have to say, usually, it works, it can take longer than that. I've seen it work in that amount of time. But again, it'll depend on the market. It'll depend on the ad. Maybe you have to tweak it. Right? But if you just leave that statement, and you don't fulfill what you said, you're lying. Now, it could be based on 100 different factors why it didn't work. So if a person wanted to do it truthfully, you'd have to tell them, usually it works. It can take, it can take longer. It can definitely take longer, but this is a proven method that works. And if it doesn't work within this amount of time, we tweak it. And we try this, we try that. But, I understand it's a ploy to get someone in the door, to offer them your services and all that. So, it's a good hook. I get it. That's misleading. So that you can't do. So if the person's an atheist, you got to see if what the business ethics or the business that they're telling you is legit. And it's not misrepresenting. It could be a problem misrepresentation, which is a Torah prohibition. Should be a Torah prohibition for non-Jews also. Can't lie. Not allowed to lie. Not allowed to misrepresent. Right? So if it's on the up and up and there's no problems, there's no misleading, whatever. Okay, so what if they're an atheist? So what? Could I read a business book for them? Yeah. As long as what they're saying is ethical. Or you can tweak it to be ethical. Let's say. Someone asked if the law courts, let's say, government have law courts, okay. How does Cain and curse be a slave established law courts? Again, if the people themselves are cursed, what does that have to do with law courts? If they do something against someone else, you got to say de facto the curse or they lose. They did something, right? Well, who cares what happened? They're guilty. Let's say. No. So that's what I say on that, right? So Cham, you're right. When I talked about the blacks, that was Cham. That's what I thought you were talking about. That Cham got cursed, right? Now, Canaan being a slave, it means he's going to be a slave to his brother. He's always going to be behooving to his brother, so to speak. So what does that have to do with the law courts? It has nothing to do with the law courts, right? Essentially, if he's going to be, behooving to his brother, he's going to have to serve his brother. So law courts, again, is by individuals, right? So therefore, if the whole people are going to be slaves, so to speak, obviously they do something wrong, go through law courts, they're guilty. They don't do something wrong, okay, but there's going to be, slaves to the brother. That's what it means. I don't really understand the question. If they're cursed to be a slave, so, well, again, what does that do with law courts? It shouldn't have anything to do with law courts. Law courts are set up the way they are. And even if he's cursed, and even if he's a slave to his brother, so to speak. So again, he does something wrong, he's going to have to pay. Yeah. Again, somebody who's a slave, are they ever going to get out of that status? Could be, maybe some will in general. Here we're talking about, a group of people being subservient to another group. Does that mean some of them cannot come out of it? Could be, some of them could. So even if you had a nation, even if you had a whole nation, so what? In other words, what are you going to take them to law court for? They caused me damage. They stole. They did other things. Okay. They're not guilty just because they're guilty. In general, they have to do something. But yeah, they're going to be subservient. 100%. They're going to be subservient, in different ways. Someone says, let's say LeBron is Canaan. Okay, so on. What does it have to do with anything? So what if he is? What can I try him for? He's enslaved. We don't have where, this nation's enslaved, in the real terms of enslavement. So they're living free, they're not enslaved, but the reality is, this nation's never going to become anything. They're always going to be, no pun intended, low man on a totem pole. That's what they're going to be. They're not going to be anything else. Maybe some individuals, will rise to the occasion. Maybe. But the vast majority, not that way. Someone asked, oh, you said Lebanon. Sorry. Saw that was LeBron. How can Lebanon establish law courts? Why not? Why can't they establish law courts? All Noahites have to establish law courts. You're going to say, but if they're enslaved, right? If they're enslaved, well, they shouldn't have law courts. All nations have to have law courts. Doesn't matter if they're enslaved or not. Right? That wouldn't matter. We're looking at enslavement as something, I think we're looking at enslavement as two different things here. Because, enslavement in general, yeah, they're going to be low man on the totem pole, so to speak. They're not going to have real power. They're going to be subservient to other nations. Okay. So why shouldn't they establish law courts? Why can't they establish law courts? Don't non-Jews have an obligation? They have an obligation to establish law courts. Doesn't matter if they're considered a slave nation or not, so what? If you didn't have law courts in any of these places, it'd be 10 times worse. Now, you can tell me the law courts in some places look like kangaroo courts, could be. And everyone's on the take and there's no real justice, that could be. And Jews were in trouble all throughout Europe and other places because judges were on the take. Judges 100% wouldn't take their, testimony or anything, and they got shafted in many ways. But even if they're a subservient nation, didn't have law courts, be 10 times worse. 10 times worse. So they have to have law courts. Everybody has to have law courts. Right? It doesn't matter what their status is, whether they're enslaved or not, who cares? They have to have law courts. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, I hope that answered the question. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. Thursday, I'm not going to be around, so there's not going to be any Q&A till next week. I should be around hopefully next week, but Thursday I'm not going to be around, and certainly tomorrow I'm not going to be around. So I'm going to sign out. Anyone has any questions, feel free. Find me on Facebook, Rabbi Chaim Coffman, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or you can send me an email at rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBICHIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day.